Hey guys, it's Jessica from Peace Love Books, and today I'm here with a massive historical romance recommendation video. This is to celebrate the historical romance readathon, so I have recommendations for each trope. So even if you're not participating, or if you're watching this after the readathon, which starts today, the day that I'm posting this, you can definitely still use this video as recommendations. If there's a specific trope that you love that I'm going to talk about, then you can read the books that I recommend. I have about 3 to 4 for each trope, so I have like a massive pile of books next to me, and I also have a giveaway with this video. So I have the giveaway posted on my Instagram, which will be linked down below, but Kate Bateman so generously gave me 3 of her signed books in this series. So I've definitely read this Earl of Mine. It's one that I'm going to be recommending in this video. It's a marriage of convenience, and it was so good. And then we have the other 2, which is To Catch an Earl and then The Princess and the Rogue, and I'm pretty sure this one is an Anastasia retelling. I'm pretty sure, and so these are part of the Bow Street Bachelor series. They're all signed for you, so if you want to win this signed set, never been read before, go to the link to my Instagram down below and the entire giveaway will be there. And all you have to do is like make sure you're following me, make sure you're following Kate Bateman, and then post a comment and maybe tag a friend. I haven't done that yet because I'm pre-filming this video, but make sure you go check out this giveaway and win a signed set of the series. And thank you so much to Kate Bateman for sending me these to give away. Alright, so I'm gonna go ahead and get to my recommendations. Some of them are books that I've read recently, some of them are I've read a while ago, so hopefully you get some new recommendations from me if you've been following me for a while. But the first trope is class difference, which I love. I know Lisa, my co-host, does not like class difference, and she talks about that a lot, but I personally love a good class difference. So the first one I have is Any Duchess Will Do by Tessa Dare. This one, our hero has lost someone in the past, so he's very closed off to everybody. His mother doesn't know about his loss though, and so his mom pretty much drags him to Spindle Cove, and that's where like spinsters live, and says you need to pick a wife. And so kind of in defiance, he picks the barmaid, and so his mother's like, okay fine, I'm gonna make her a duchess, and takes the barmaid. And the only way that the barmaid accepts though is that the duke says, if you come and do a horrible job at this training, I will give you money so that you and your sister can be set up for life. And so she agrees, even though she doesn't want to leave her sister who really depends on her. She does, and then they fall in love in the process. So this one, fantastic. I'm gonna try to go a little fast because I've got a million. The next one's A Night Like This by Julia Quinn. This is book 2 in the Smythe Smith Quartet series. I love this one. This one I think is Daniel's story. He was in a duel. The first book is about his sister and his best friend. This one's about him. He pretty much like left town because of this duel, because he ended up hitting his friend in the leg and really hurting his friend. So his friend's like permanently has a limp now because of this duel, and so his friend's father was angry, ran him out of town, and now he's back and he's really infatuated with the governess. It's pretty insta-lovey. Like he is like, I need this woman, and someone's trying to kill one of them too, so there's a little bit of a mystery going on, but I really like the governess. I like the little girl she had to watch over, and so this one was a lot of fun. The next one is A Duchess a Day by Charis Michaels. This one is a Snow White retelling, and it is about the huntsman. So our heroine has been betrothed to this guy she really doesn't want to marry, and so she tries to run away, and in order to make sure she doesn't run away, the huntsman is hired to be like her bodyguard to make sure she doesn't run away. They end up falling in love, but they also end up trying to like track down women she thinks would be more suitable to marry this guy than her, and they all take after the 7 dwarves, which was really fun. So I really enjoy this one. She's obviously of high social class. He is a bodyguard, and he has a past though where he has to succeed at this job or else like his family's ruined. So now he's conflicted, like I really like this girl, but I have to make sure she marries this guy even though obviously she doesn't want to. It's great. I recommend this one too. Then I have A Gentleman Never Keeps Score by Cat Sebastian. I talk about this one all the time. We have 2 heroes. It is MM. One is a recluse because he is very wealthy, but it came out that he is gay, and so society pretty much shunned him. He shut up in his house. It was this huge scandal, and then the love interest is this tavern owner, and he needs to get this portrait back of his friend. It's a very scandalous portrait that the other hero's relatives, I think, had, and so he goes to his house to try to steal it, and the guy living there sees him in the process, and then they have to figure out where this painting is, and it's great. So the one is of high social class, the other one owns a tavern. I really love this romance too. Next we have the Wallflower trope. Now we have the Wallflower trope and the Spinster trope in our readathon, and someone had asked me what the difference is, and the difference is that a Wallflower is someone who is having their 1st or 2nd season or 3rd season really, and they are the one who's just left on the wall during the balls. No guys are really interested in them, no guys really see them, and they're kind of being passed over, and it's either they do something to make them not be passed over, or they will eventually become a spinster. And a spinster is they've had all their seasons already and they're just like, I'm gonna be alone forever. So the difference is one is like in the midst of their season, kind of like they're coming out at their very beginning, but guys aren't really interested. Spinster is pretty much what a wallflower ends up turning into, where they're older, they are on the shelf for a while, and they're just never gonna get married. So the first one that I have is this one. This whole series is actually the Wallflower series by Lisa Kleypas. We have Secrets of a Summer Night. I've only read book 1 and then I think book 3, which is Devil in Winter. These are a lot of fun. They're about a group of girls who are all wallflowers, and then they kind of band together to try to not be wallflowers anymore. And I finally got a copy of the one with a step back. I didn't own this copy. I read a copy of this book for like a traveling book, so I like wrote in it and sent it along, and I never actually owned it. But this series is a lot of fun. I really love the whole friendship aspect of the 4 girls being friends. The next one I have is The Wicked Wallflower by Maya Rodale, and this one, our heroine's a wallflower and she is desperate to get married, so she puts an announcement in the paper that she is betrothed to a duke, I think, or a titled man, and she didn't mean to send it, but once she wrote it, there was a fire and her mother accidentally sent it. I think that's this one, because I read 2 books with a very similar plot like this, but I think that was this one. And what happens is the hero figures out about it, and he needs money because he is going on this business venture, I think, or like some invention, and so he plays along with it. He's like, fine, I need to be taken seriously so I can get investments for this thing I want. And so then they end up fake dating and, well, like fake engaged, and then have to go to his aunt's house for this big like game to try to get into her will, which she throws every year. It's so much fun, and our heroine's not used to getting all this attention because she's just a wallflower, but this one is a lot of fun. I really liked it. Next isn't really a trope, but it's clinch covers, and these I love, so I have a lot, and pretty much like a lot of these have the clinch cover, but these are some of my favorites and some of my favorite books that I think you should be looking at. So I have 4 on this list, so let me gather them. I have to include Joanna Lindsay for clinch covers, so that's Hearts of Flame. This one I really enjoyed. Our heroine is like part of a Viking family, and she hasn't had any interest in the men who live in their town, and so her brothers are going like on a supply run. Really, they're gonna go try to invade a country and lie to her parents about it, so she smuggles on their ship to try to go see other men in this other town, and she doesn't know they're going on a raid. They get captured, she gets captured, and it's her romance with the captor. I really love this. Iconic clinch cover. Then we have the Highlander by Kerrigan Byrne. This counts as a single parent because she's actually a governess for him. He was a lieutenant colonel in the military, and she goes and stays as a governess with them, falls in love with him, he's got kids. I just really love this cover as well. Then we have Destiny's Surrender. This one's actually my favorite of the series, and I have the first one as a recommendation for something else by Beverly Jenkins. I just love every one of Beverly Jenkins' covers, but this one, our heroine is a sex worker and our hero is one of her customers, and he really likes her. This is also the class difference because he cannot be with her, and he ends up getting her pregnant, and the story goes from there. I love this series. We have the mom's side romance as well through all 3 books, which I loved, so this one is perfect. And the last one is Lord of Scoundrels. This is the original cover, so you could definitely count this as a clinch cover. This one, I really enjoyed it. Our heroine is Jessica, and she has a brother who gets into a lot of trouble. She gets angry at her hero because she thinks he's negatively influencing her brother, and then they get caught in a compromising position. I have to reread this one. I read it over a year ago, I think, and I am so just like losing my memory of these books because I remember enjoying it, but I don't remember a lot else about the plot. So definitely on my list to reread, but I really enjoyed this one. Next we have one of my favorite tropes, which is Marriage of Convenience. I've already talked about a couple that do have a Marriage of Convenience, but the first one I want to talk about is The Duke I Tempted by Scarlett Peckham. This one, our heroine is really into plants. She's a botanist? Yes, botany? She's a botanist, and she is hired by this woman to make this grand like garden ball, and this woman's brother is the Duke, and she really doesn't want to help, but she needs help moving her garden, I always forget what it's called, greenhouse. Wow. She needs help moving her greenhouse off of her uncle's estate because her uncle just passed away, but it's hers. She doesn't want anybody taking it, and so she is offered help, and she takes this job doing this ball, and so she says yes, and then she gets caught in a compromising position with the Duke, and they have to get married, and it's great. He does have a tragic past of his own that he seeks out pain to deal with his emotions, and that kind of causes a conflict in the relationship because he won't open up to her about it. But I love a working heroine. I love a Marriage of Convenience. This one was fabulous. ridiculous. I forgot I had this one on this list, but Never Seduce a Scot by My Banks, one of my favorites. Our heroine is deaf and she's married off to the rival clan, and in order to like have better relationships between the clans, and she needs to be accepted by them, and she tries really hard to be accepted by them, but they hate her because she's part of the rival clan. It's amazing. I love this one. Then we have Love Only Once by Joanna Lindsay. This one was so good. Our heroine, she ends up kind of being at the wrong place in the wrong time, and our hero is trying to kidnap his mistress as a way to like pay her back for something she did, and because she's like trying to make him jealous, he accidentally kidnaps our heroine instead, and our heroine thinks it's hilarious, and then her brothers are really angry though, and they're like, you better marry her now that you've compromised her, because he like kidnaps her and like locks her up in his bedroom for a while, but he thinks it's his mistress. It's so fun. I really love this one. I loved all of her brothers. This is the first book in this series. That Gentle Rogue's in this book too, the Mallory series. It's like the Mallory siblings, and she's the first one. I love her brothers so much. This was a lot of fun. And then I have this Earl of Mine by Kate Bateman, which is part of that giveaway. This one, our heroine needs to get out of a really bad situation. I believe she's being betrothed to someone she doesn't want to be, and so she decides to go to death row and find a husband, and she's like, if I can just marry one of them, they're gonna be killed off tomorrow, I can be a widow and just have all the freedom I want to. Well, she ends up marrying this guy who's actually an earl undercover in the prison, and he doesn't die the next day. He's then shows up in society, and she's like, what? So she ends up getting a husband, and it's so much fun. I love this one, so definitely a Marriage of Convenience. Then we have Scottish, and now I always get these two mixed up. So the first one's this Scot of Mine, and this one is, I believe, Sophie Jordan's. I get this one and Tessa Dare's mixed up, which I'm going to talk about next. But this one, our heroine, I think it was at her, yes. So she needs to get out of a bad marriage, and so she pretends to be pregnant, and she's not, and so her brother marries her off to this Scottish guy, and he really wants to marry her because his family's cursed and that all the men die before their firstborn child is born. And so he's like, this is perfect, I can marry her and I can have a child who's my heir, and I won't have to like submit to this curse. She's not actually pregnant, and so she doesn't tell him that though until after they're married. But this one was so good. I'm reading a one right now where there's a curse, and I really like that in historical romances where there's some sort of curse, some like magical thing happening. So read this one if you like that. Then I have When a Scot Ties a Knot by Tessa Dare, and this one, our heroine makes up a fiance, and she ends up like writing letters to him because she just doesn't want to get married. So she's like, well, I'm already engaged to someone, and so she writes letters to him, and it ends up being sent to a real person, and she doesn't know that. And so what happens is she like kills him off in her like letters, and she's like, oh, he's dead, I'm a widow now. And so he shows up and he's like, hey, and she's like, who are you? And he's like, I'm your betrothed. And it was so funny. I love this one. And he shows up like with his clan, and because like I don't remember, I think someone had died, and so she inherited the castle, and it was amazing. I love this one. And another absolute classic is The Secret by Julie Garwood. This one, our heroine has a best friend from Scotland, and they met on the border, and England and Scotland really don't get along, but she and her best friend are really close, and her best friend's pregnant. She's terrified of pregnancy because I think her mom and her grandmother might have died in childbirth, so she's like, I'm gonna be terrified. And so she agrees that she'll be there for her when she has her first child. Time has come, so her clan laird ends up sending men to, and he goes to, I think, to escort her back to Scotland. It's her relationship with the laird. It's fabulous. She ends up being kind of a midwife, is that what it's called? The person who helps like women give birth. She ends up being that for their clan, and like helping the women who are pregnant and waiting for her friend to give birth, and she falls in love with the laird in the process. This one, just a gem. I need to read more Julie Garwood. I'm not even halfway through. This is gonna be a long video. So we have Selfmade Man. So the first one I have is Once More My Darling Rogue by Lorraine Heath. I love this one so much. This one is a amnesia romance, which I need to read more of. In this one, our heroine hates our hero, and he is a self-made man, and so he really feels ostracized from society because of it. But he also is interesting with his money as well, which I think was really cool reading that, because he is more conscious of like his money and who gets his money and stuff like that. And so she loses her memory, and they've hated each other, and so he decides to pretend that she is his maid, and she's like, this doesn't feel right, like I feel like I should be spending money and I'm so confused. But she goes along with it, and then they fall in love, and then it's gonna come out like she's gonna get her memory back. It was so good. Oh, and then the next one I have for this is Again the Magic by Lisa Kleypas. Our hero and heroine, McKenna, and what was her name? Oh, Aileen. So it's Aileen and McKenna. They were in love when they were younger, but he was one of the servants of the household. Her father figures out, banishes him, and she makes it sound like it was also her fault too. And so she like breaks his heart so he doesn't want to come back and like ruin himself. He leaves, makes a fortune, and he's back and he's super wealthy, and it's their second chance romance. Heartbreaking, but amazing. I love this one. Then this one's another cover one. We have purple on the cover. So the first one that I have is My Darling Duke by Stacey Reid. This is a damaged hero. He is badly scarred, and he doesn't really have full function of his limbs because of his scarring. All of his muscles are super tight and his skin's tightening over time, and he finds it really hard. So he is in a wheelchair a lot of the time. And our heroine, this is the other one where she puts in the paper that she is engaged to the Duke. She needs good options for her sisters to get married, so she wants to bring her reputation up. So she says she's married. She's betrothed to the Duke and puts it in the paper. His solicitors come around, give her money. It's like everybody knows. He shows up and he's like, who's this woman saying that we're betrothed? And he actually enters society for the first time in like 10 years, and he agrees to go along with everything if she comes to his estate in Scotland and spend some time with him. So I adore this one of my favorites of all time. The next one is While the Duke Was Sleeping by Sophie Jordan. This one is a retelling of While You Were Sleeping, the movie with Sandra Bullock, which is one of my favorite Christmas movies. And so our heroine works at a flower shop and she takes care of her sister, and then she's like in love with the Duke that comes in all the time. He ends up getting into a really bad accident in the street, and she's like, oh, I was gonna marry him like in my dreams, but she doesn't say that. And so someone hears and it's like, oh, this is his fiance. And so she has to go help him, but then his Scottish brother shows up who hates him. They are estranged. Bad things have happened, and her and the Scottish brother really butt heads, but then they end up falling in love in the process. This one, so much fun. I really like the rom-com-y aspect of Sophie Jordan's writing. It's definitely a lighter one. And then I have Indigo by Beverly Jenkins. This has a much more purple cover in one of the editions. That's why I recommend it. This is more like blue purple, but I love this one. We have Hester and Galen. Hester and Galen both work for the Underground Railroad. Hester is like kind of one of the stops, and Galen is one of the people who helps move slaves, and so he gets really, really hurt. She ends up nursing him back to health for like the first half of the book, and it was phenomenal. And there's someone that's kind of like leaking information, and that's how Galen was hurt in the first place, and so they had to figure out all of that. Absolutely amazing. Read this. There's also, I'm going to talk about not set in Europe, and this one's one of them, but you have to read this. Then we have Duke in the title, which I actually have an entire video for Duke romances, not necessarily having Duke in the title, but they have Dukes in the book. But the ones I have with Duke in the title, I have a bunch. So the first one is Duke of Midnight by Elizabeth Hoyt. This one, our hero is the Ghost of St. Giles, which is like this vigilante that's different men throughout the book, and he's actually a Duke, and our heroine is a companion to a wealthy woman. I think she lost all of her money, so now she's a companion, and her brother has been arrested for a crime he didn't commit, and she is terrified, and so she needs to get him out. And she kind of figures out that the Duke is this vigilante, and so she blackmails him and is like, you need to help get my brother out of prison or I'm going to tell everybody your secret. So it's amazing. I loved it. And he's actually the brother of the heroine of the Dearest Rogue. Yes, and Dearest Rogue, she is blind in that one, and it's so good. But I love this series. I need to read all of them. I've only read a handful, and they're like all later on in the series, but love this series. Her Night with the Duke by Danny Quincy, one of my favorites. This one, our heroine is a widow, and she is going back home for her stepdaughter's betrothal. Her and her stepdaughter are like really close in age, so they're really good friends. She stops at a tavern, has a night with a Duke, a very steamy night with a Duke, and then realizes that is her stepdaughter's betrothed. But obviously it's going to be their romance. Amazing. The Duke Heist by Erica Ridley. I really love this one. I actually have a interview with Erica Ridley today, the day that I'm posting this on Monday. I am talking to her on my Instagram on Instagram Live. I'm super excited. This one is really a found family. Our heroine is adopted. She has a bunch of orphans who were adopted by this man. He passes away, and there is a painting that they thought was wrongfully taken from him, so they want to get it back. And so she is a thief, and all of them really have their own little skills, and so she tries to take the painting and ends up kind of taking him instead, and it is so good. And our hero is just, he needs a family too, and I really enjoy this one. And then another one of my favorites is If the Duke Demands by Anna Harrington. Our heroine is in love with her neighbor. She is of lower class, so there's a social class difference too, and she lives next to a really wealthy family that has a Duke in it, and their father passes away, so the eldest gets the Duke title, but he needs to take it seriously because he wasn't there when his dad died. He feels really guilty, so he needs to find a wife and be like a prim and proper Duke. And she decides that she wants to seduce the brother who she's in love with, and goes to the wrong room and goes to the Duke's room, and then he's like, what is happening? Like first they're like into it and then they're like, wait, you're not who I thought you were. And so then they talk, and so he's like, if you find me a proper wife, I will help you get my brother. And they fall in love in the process. This is amazing, one of my favorites. Then we have Not Set in Europe, which Indigo counts for, but I also have Night Song by Beverly Jenkins. This one I think was her first book that she published, and our heroine is a teacher and her family was taken and hanged by soldiers, and so she really doesn't trust them, but our hero is a soldier and he is in town and he instantly is like, you are mine, I want you, and it is their romance. I really enjoyed this one. There's also someone that's like obsessed with her, and there's like a little bit of intrigue at the end, so I really enjoyed this one. We also have The Rogue of Fifth Avenue by Joanna Shupe. This one, our heroine helps women who need assistance. Okay, it says that she's a modern day Robin Hood. She helps struggling families and struggling women, and so does, I think, her sister, and another one of these books does that too. But Frank is the family's lawyer, and he kind of like meddles and gets in the way, and then she needs his help, and I really enjoy this one. This one also is class difference. Like, he's a lawyer, he's self-made, and she is from a wealthy family. The whole series is great. I think I've read all 3 of them, and I really enjoyed them. Then we have Forbidden by Beverly Jenkins. This one, I really enjoy this as well. Our heroine is on her way, I believe, to California, and she wants to open her own restaurant, but then she gets attacked and pretty much like stranded in the desert, and our hero finds her, and he is a really prominent person in his town, but he is white passing, and if he ever decides to like have a romance with her, he needs to give up the fact that he's white passing, and he's scared that he'll give up all the power he has and all the change he can make, and I really enjoy this one. She starts working in a kitchen at like a diner, I guess, at the town, and she's a great heroine. She's just trying to get money so she can go to California. I thought this one was a lot of fun. Then we have a spy romance. I have 2. The first one is An Extraordinary Union by Alyssa Cole. This one is during the Civil War. Our heroine is a spy and she's acting as a slave for a family. Our hero is acting as a equal to the family, and so he's in town and he has to act like he's courting the daughter. They're kind of falling in love, but he has to treat her like a slave in public, and it's so heartbreaking, but it's so good. The ending's crazy, and I'm excited to continue on with this series. Then Winds of the Storm is also a spy romance by Beverly Jenkins. Our heroine is a spy and she ends up going undercover as a madam, and all of the women who like work for her are also spies, and they're trying to like infiltrate the town and like get men to talk, and our hero was actually saved by her as she was a famous spy in the beginning, and she always keeps a veil over her face though as the madam, and so he doesn't really recognize her, but then they start falling for each other. This one was fabulous as well. I'm on my last page of notes, but I don't know how long this is going to take me. So now I have spinster romances. So the first one is 9 Rules to Break When Romancing a Rake. Our heroine's a spinster and she's like older, later 20s. Her sister is engaged, and so she decides, you know, I'm done living this like quiet, meek life. I'm gonna do things, and so she makes 9 rules that she wants to break. She has this whole list, which is in the beginning: kiss someone passionately, smoke and drink, ride astride, fence, duel, shoot a pistol, gamble. There's lots of things she wants to do. There's a Marquess that like shows up everywhere she is, and they end up having a romance, and it's so much fun. I absolutely love this book. Definitely one of my top favorite romances as well. This one is just so fun. Then we have A Week to be Wicked by Tessa Dare. This is in the Spindle Cove series, which is a series of spinsters. Like, they're all sent to this place, and A Week to be Wicked is about our heroine whose sister is like kind of almost engaged to this guy, but she doesn't want her sister's reputation to be ruined. So she approaches him and she's like, marry me instead because I want my sister to be, her reputation to be saved. And then she tries to make a deal with him that she'll marry him if he takes her to Scotland to this conference for fossils, because she's really into fossils, and at first he says no, and then she ends up dragging him along. He lost his whole family in a carriage accident, so he can't ride in a coach anymore, and so they have to like get creative and find ways to get there, and it's so funny. I laughed out loud so many times in this. They fall in love in the process. They're just traveling, trying to make their way through Scotland, and I loved it. Then we have an indie romance, so this means that it was not traditionally published. So I have The Duchess War by Courtney Milan. Courtney Milan does indie publish a lot of her romances. She used to traditionally publish them, but now she does it on her own. This one, our heroine has a really sad past, and so she does have PTSD from it. She doesn't like to be the center of attention, and our hero, he is a duke. He's very intrigued by her, and people are also thinking that she is the one putting up these posters around town to help these factory workers go on strike, and she's not, and she's trying to figure out who it is so that the attention goes off of her. It's her and the duke's romance. I adore this one, another one of my absolute favorites. Then I also want to include The Surviving Trace by Callie Reed. This is actually time travel, but it is a historical in the 1910s, I want to say. And our heroine time travels back in time. She has a fiance in the present, and then she has a dream about this guy, and then she sees him when she time travels in the past, and it's their romance, and she's taking over the life of someone who's already living there and looks exactly like her, who is, I think, the betrothed of that guy. And they hate each other, and it's so good. It's a 3-book series. I've read the first 2 and I really enjoyed them. Then I have series in a series. First is Mine Till Midnight. This one is a series that I really need to continue on. I adore the first one, and I think it sets up the other books really well. This one, our heroine has this family that kind of inherited this title, and like no one's been wanting it, and her brother inherits it, and he is still grieving a loss that he went through. So he's pretty much a drunk. She loses him and tries to go around and find him, and runs into our hero who owns the bar, I think, that she went to. So I think he's also considered a self-made man, right? Because he like made his own money. And then they end up having to go to the estate that they inherited. It's crumbling, and the hero shows up next door because he's hanging out with his friends, and it's their romance. I adore this, and I'm dying to read book 2. Set up so well. I also have the Destiny series by Beverly Jenkins. I already talked about book 2. This is book 1. Our hero is a bachelor, and the mom decides to hire a maid for him. She's super strong-headed. She like doesn't take any of his crap, and they end up falling in love, and it was really cute. I really love this series. The third one's a pirate romance too, and it just does a great job.
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
That really scared me. Okay. It's fabulous. I love how it was built up, and the mom has her own romance throughout, so one of my favorite series. Then we have Single Parent. So the first one is The Ray Kess, another one of my favorites by Scarlett Peckham. Our hero is actually the single parent. He lost his wife in childbirth, and so he is definitely grieving her, and I think he has 2 kids. Our heroine is a Ray Kess. She is known for her reputation in society, her bad reputation, because she's a woman. People really look down upon her. They like say nasty things to her, post nasty things about her around town. She's writing a tell-all memoir about her life and how it's been being a Ray Kess and having that double standard where men can do it and she can't, and he is an architect in town, and they fall in love, and it is absolutely amazing. I love this one. Then we have The Hunter, which is an assassin romance. He is hired to kill her, and she has a child, and she is an actress, and when he is trying to kill her, he kisses her instead, and it is their romance. And then of course when he decides not to kill her, someone else is hired, so now he's trying to save her life, and there's secrets about her child, and really an engaging romance that I enjoyed. Then we have Accidentally Compromising the Duke by Stacey Reed. This one is really fun because our heroine wants to ruin her reputation, and so she wants to go to this one guy's room who she knows that will make a good husband. She goes to the Mad Duke's room instead, and he is grieving, I believe, over the loss of his wife, but he really needs a wife for his kids, and so she ends up getting a reputation room like she planned, but not with the man she planned to do it with, and they have to marry. So this is a marriage of convenience, but he is also a single parent wanting a wife for his kids. Now the last one I have is just a cover one, so it is one person on the cover, and I have 3 for this one. The first one is My Last Duchess, which is the prequel to the Wild series. I think the entire Wild series though does have one person on the cover, and they're all the kids of this couple, and this also is a single parent because our hero is a single parent of a lot of kids, and she is also a single parent of one child. They meet at a ball, and he is instantly like, I am in love with you, and she's like, no. And so she leaves, and then they reconnect, and it is their romance. It's so adorable. It's the parent story, so then we have all their kids' books in the actual series. Then I have When the Duke Was Wicked by Lorraine Heath. I think a lot of Lorraine Heath's books are also one person. This one, our heroine, she has a lot of money, and she wants a husband, and so she doesn't want someone to take advantage of her. So she asks her friend, who she's kind of been infatuated with her whole life. He is a widower, and she asks for his help, and then he decides to help her find a husband but falls in love with her, and then he is like, why am I having these feelings? She's nothing like my wife. My wife's dead. Am I betraying my wife? Why am I feeling this? Does that mean my feelings for my wife weren't real? It's so sad, but I really like this one. And then we have Someone to Watch Over Me by Lisa Kleypas. This is also a amnesia romance, and our heroine ends up in, I feel like they always wake up in the Thames, and she has no memory, and our hero is a Bow Street runner, and he finds her, and he knows her. She's a famous courtesan, and she's like, I'm what? And so she also feels like this is doesn't feel right, but I mean, who am I? Who was trying to kill me? And so he ends up lying about their relationship, saying that they had a previous relationship, and I don't think they did, but this one is really fun. I love a good amnesia romance, so I'd recommend picking this one up. That was like a million recommendations in one video, but let me know down below if you have any good recommendations for these tropes or if you read any of them. Make sure you check out my giveaway from Kate Bateman on my Instagram, and let me know if you're participating in the historical romance readathon. I'd love to hear. This is just extra help in case you're stuck during the week and need a new book to read. I know we probably all have like set TBRs, but this is just a bunch of historical recommendations if you want them. But that's all I have. As always, thank you so much for watching and have a good day.